Hello, my name is Ruth. I school in GHS Boyatown and I'm a member of the Yarn Club. In my project, I'll be talking about how constructive agriculture can be done. Constructive agriculture entails protecting the soil, protecting the trees, and equally, using less pesticides on the soil is constructive. I like agriculture and I like this project because agriculture faces many problems like leaching, planting without replenishing, and equally deforestation. So I would like to look at agriculture critically and try to bring out some possible solutions to these problems. Have fun enjoying the rest of the video. Welcome back to the video. As you know me, I am Suri, and now I would like you to meet the expert.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Piscopo. I'm the expert. I studied forestry and agriculture in university in Wisconsin in the U.S. Afterwards, I went to work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA Forest Service. I worked there for 2 years, after which I went to Mali and I practiced agriculture in conjunction with agroforestry. And now I've been in Cameroon here for 3 months. I live down in Great Supple, and I work on Malingo Street at an organization called Trees for the Future. And we work with small farmers in the southwest, in the northwest, and the west regions of Cameroon in order to empower them to plant trees on their farm which take nitrogen from the air and put it in the soil to increase the soil fertility and to increase crop production.
So looking at agriculture, what are some of the effects of agriculture to the world as a whole?
Well, one of the biggest effects of agriculture is that it feeds people.
Yeah.
So agriculture is absolutely necessary for humankind. People have been practicing agriculture for thousands of years. And agriculture created the biggest, there's the largest boom, the largest increase in land donated to agriculture in the 1970s. And this correlated with a time when pesticides and herbicides became available to everybody. There's a lot of research conducted on the best types of pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers from chemicals. And they're distributed to all parts of the world. And also hybridized seeds that require a lot of inputs from chemicals, and high yielding varieties of seeds, which are typically grown in a monoculture, which is one systematic way of planting crops in a field that where this crop only exists by itself. There's no grass, there are no trees, just this one variety.
Yeah, just like this.
With the plantains.
Yeah.
But the system that I'm talking about is large scale, involving thousands of hectares.
Yeah.
So you asked me the effects of agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are different types of agriculture, like the monoculture, the large monoculture. The effects are there's a lack of genetic resources, where in the past, about 100 years ago, there were hundreds of varieties of corn. Today, what's commercially available to most people are maybe 4 or 5 different varieties of corn. And this is the same for rice. There was the World Rice Institute in the Philippines that did a lot of research on the best variety of rice, and they found the best variety. It produces a whole lot on a small area of land. And this variety of rice replaced much of the varieties in China and in Southeast Asia. Whereas before, there are thousands of different varieties of rice. You might go to a village, and this village has its own specific variety. But now they're all farming the same variety. So the risk is that there will be a disease that affects this variety, and when it affects it, it affects the whole world crop of it. So there are some organizations, and there's a seed bank up in Iceland that is preserving these genetic resources of old varieties of corn, or in rice, in plantains, and everything. So in the future, if there's a disease or insect infestation that affects this one variety, they could pull out old varieties and start distributing those. And also another effect of agriculture, one that requires inputs like pesticides, herbicides, and chemical fertilizers, is pollution. And the pollution could be airborne, or it could be carried through with water. The airborne is created when farmers spray their fields, and the wind carries this pollution into neighboring villages, into communities, into settlements that are right down the side of this large monoculture. And also the runoff from water, if there's agriculture on a slope and with the absence of trees, when it rains, it could carry the fertilizer or the other chemicals down into the valley or into a water source. And when fertilizers enter the water source, it creates what's called eutrophication, which is the increase of nitrogen in a water source from the fertilizer, which creates an algae bloom or a rapid increase in plant life in the lake or river. And this causes the river or the lake to become anoxic, meaning there's no oxygen. So fish can't survive, and the water becomes unproductive, and the water becomes undrinkable as well. And pesticides and herbicides, same thing. They don't create eutrophication, but they poison the water source. Even when they seep into the groundwater, they could poison the source. So epidemiology studies in the United States have been able to find specific agricultural areas or businesses that are polluting at one source, and it's contaminating the groundwater for the nearby villages. And also with large-scale agriculture, and it affects the soil fertility, because every year large amounts of biomass, which is the total amount of plant material of any growing crop, is grown, and then at the end of the year it's cut and removed. So every year when you cut and you remove the corn to sell on market, you're removing fertility that was there in the soil because of from fertilizer. So it requires more inputs every single year. And also agriculture is related to deforestation. These large systems lack trees, which means that it disrupts the water cycle. Without trees, water is not able to penetrate and percolate through the ground as easy to access the water source and to remain in the system. Instead, you have these large fields that are just filled with one type of crop, and the sun beats down on it, and the water is just evaporated into the atmosphere, into big, clear blue skies, and it's moved away from the system.
So what are some of the effects of destructive agriculture to the soil and also to the atmosphere?
Well, the effects, the global effects of global warming. That's large-scale agriculture requires a lot of inputs, and these inputs require petroleum for production and for transport, and also the use of tractors. They use engines that use diesel fuel, and they're not very efficient. Right. In certain types of agriculture, typically smaller fallow agriculture, the farmers burn the bush after it's laid fallow for 4 or 5 years, and this creates carbon that goes into the atmosphere. And also, like I mentioned, the pesticide drift creates airborne pollution. And the massive production of food anyways, and the processing and the consumption of this food increases the methane that's released into the atmosphere, which is also a greenhouse gas, which further intensifies global climate change.
So we can also say that planting without replenishing, it also affects the soil negatively.
Yes, it does affect the soil. Of course, in good quality soil, there are a lot of microorganisms. And when you add pesticides to the soil, it kills the microorganisms. And microorganisms, they do many things in the soil. They tunnel through it, creating spaces for water and air to access. They facilitate the percolation of water, and they facilitate oxygen in the soil. And there are other microorganisms like bacteria that are involved in the process of ammonification, which is the conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrite. And then nitrification is the process of converting nitrite into nitrate, which is then used by the plant to grow. So in the absence of these, it's necessary to keep adding these artificial fertilizers. It's like a human being. If we eat gari and arrow or fufu and jama jama every day, we could be sustained forever until we grow old. But if we only drink reactor, we'll have energy, but it's only for a short period of time. After our body metabolizes the reactor, we need more. And you could keep going like this, but it's not healthy for you, it's not sustainable. Eventually you will reach a crash. And that is the system with the soil fertility. If you keep adding chemicals to it to produce, and you keep removing the crop from the field, soon you'll find that there's very little fertility in the soil. All it is getting is from the chemicals.
So what would you like to, what are some of the advice you'd like to give to poor farmers to help them reduce soil damage but keep on farming?
Okay. Well, the advice that I could give to small farmers is typically small farmers, they have less of an impact on reduction of soil fertility as large monoculture systems. Because people here in Cameroon, they typically plant a lot of different crops together. They plant cocoa yams and plantains and maize all in the same system. And there will be trees left on the property depending on the use. Maybe it's bush mango, or maybe there's a tree there for nuts like jangsa or pear, for instance. So these help improve the soil quality and the genetic resources and the hardiness, its resistance to insect invasions. So my advice is to practice small-scale agriculture very intensively, manage your land very hard, to work hard. And the best thing to do is to mimic the systems that are very old. The Bakweri in this town, historically, the way they farm in a way that's not exploitative, and the way they manage resources from the forest does not affect the sustainability of it, because they're accustomed to this area. So when they harvest arrow or they harvest Prunus africana, they know how to do it from their ancestors and they do it sustainably. So it's farmers that come from other areas, either in this generation or in past generations, that don't understand the best land ethic, the best way to be a land steward. So they end up abusing the soil. So the best thing that I could advise is to look at your neighbor who may know a farming system that is more sustainable and learn from him, to share advice, to come together in CIGs and practice sustainable agriculture, which could be organic farming, diverse systems where you're growing fruit trees, timber trees. In the mid-story you're growing some other fruit trees like papayas, and then down low you're growing some bush pepe or cocoa yams, and some agroforestry trees. And agroforestry is a system that is native to Cameroon. It's native to Africa. It's been here for thousands of years. But people, they're trying to mimic other systems where you have a higher yield but are not sustainable, like monocultures, because they see the wealth that is gained by plantations, but they don't realize that it affects their livelihood in the end because it destroys the land that they live on. So organic farming is an option, and agroforestry is another one. And agroforestry is a systematic planting of trees in rows in your field that take nitrogen from the air, and with the help of bacteria, small microorganisms in the soil, they convert, as I mentioned earlier, the nitrogen into a form that's able to be drinking by the plant to produce leaves. And every year before you plant your crops, you take the leaves and you add them to your soil in order to provide more organic matter and more nitrogen to the soil to produce a sustainable system. So in areas of high population, like here in Boya, there's a lack of farmland. So people are not able to practice fallow agriculture as they had in the past. In the past, they used to leave land fallow for 7 years. Now, they leave it fallow for 3 years or not at all. But a system of agroforestry, or a very diverse system of organic farming, permits the farmer to farm the same area of land continuously, year after year, forever. And it doesn't reduce the soil quality, it only increases it. So after 5 years of starting a system, you start to see an increase in production. And this is very essential for the tropics here, because the tropics have specific soils called eutasols or oxasols. And in these particular soils, they have a very low cation exchange capacity, which just basically means that they're not able to hold on to nutrients very well. So in a forest like this, most of the nutrients are above the earth in the vegetation. So when you cut down the vegetation and you burn it, the nutrients leave very quickly. So it's important to keep a crop cover that is constantly adding nutrients back into the soil through leaf litter and the decomposition with the help of organisms in the soil.
So actually, can we also say that contour farming can help?
Contour farming can certainly help, yes. On hill slopes like this, contour farming, it reduces erosion. It's a land management style that works with contour bunds, which are vegetation buffers that slow down water as it's moving downhill. And then the flat areas are able to be farmed, where the water sits in these pools and then eventually percolates into the soil as opposed to just running off the surface. But when you practice contour farming, it's important to put certain species that hold the soil into place and to prevent the contours that you create from eroding away as well.
So thank you very much for helping us. And I hope that you learn more from this video. Thank you.
If I listen to your lies, would you say I'm a man?
Welcome back. As you already know me, I am Ruth, and this is Mommy Grace, who has this farm. So, Mommy, looking at agriculture, what made you cultivate this crop here? What now? It's make you like for work na corn for the side?
Because I want chop.
Okay.
I want to chop corn.
So you work it just to consume it.
Yes.
So what are the problems that you face? Which then you worry you when you work on?
When I work corn, I don't get something like fertilizer and the material for sprayer, so that me to move no enter for the corn and for the njama.
Okay.
Yes.
So now the two main problems that they worry you. The fertilizer no dey.
The fertilizer no dey. I no get money for the pay to me the weed grass for the.
Okay.
Yes.
So those are the main problems you have.
Yes.
Okay. But looking at your farm, your family really do fine. Well, it really shows even as a fertilizer no dey and you need to spray the corn.
That the buy.
Do fine.
I be the buyer. I be the buyer and small the putter. They put them for njama and corn.
Wow.
Yes.
Your family really do
Be
fine.
the borrower. When I go for meeting house, I go borrow money. Then I come buy fertilizer. I buy the chemicals. So I the sprayer. So that me to move and the enter for corn. Me corn they look fine.
Yeah.
Like how it is so. Me njama too they look fine. I move grass every day for my farm.
So now it's make a choose to plant corn to the side, plant banana to the side.
I put corn because I no fit take all farmer plant na one thing.
Yeah.
Because I dey chop corn with njama. So I get for plant to njama they give me some money where I dey go now, I dey go back and for meeting for that place where I dey take borrow money 50,000. I dey take the wrong farm day.
Okay.
So now I don't work corn, I work with njama. When I call njama, sometimes I go sell them 2,000, 3,000. Any day where I go for meeting house, I put money for them. I back the money back. Small.
Okay. So now why we decide to plant jamajima to the side?
Yes.
So that we different way to cut and sell. So
Yes.
okay, even the corn.
Even the corn.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Mommy, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. So once more, welcome back, and as you already know me, I am Ruth. I want to thank everyone watching this video to please learn something from it and help reduce the rate of soil damage and also global warming.